This is the DRF Players Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Thomas Fornatel and Jonathan Kinchin.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast. This is show 349, Tuesday, July 10th edition. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel, no longer in a glass box in Maine, now in a tower high above the Thames in London, in Vauxhall, to be specific, on Albert Embankment. Went to see a air show at lunch today. Very cool stuff in St. James's Park, along the Mile. Got to see some Spitfires and other amazing pieces of aircraft. Not too bad. Late afternoon here for me, so I'm not sure this sound effect is going to work as well as JK's from last week, but can you hear that? Can you hear that? I don't know. Pouring a beer, enjoying a little bit of an early happy hour here in London. Excited to talk about the racing from last weekend. And to do just that, I'm going to bring in my co-host. He's back from Chicago. He's on the planet Texas. He's the people's champion. Didn't really add to his resume this weekend, but he's still the people's champion. He's Jonathan Kinchin. JK, what's up?
What's going on? Yeah, no, I had a great time in Chicago running into a lot of contest players and getting some funny stories, and had a guy walk up to me and tell me that we entertained him on his drive from Minnesota.
Nice.
So that was good. And I ran into Frank Mastari. I haven't told you the story yet, Pete. You'll love it. Frank was heading out to Santa Anita after his son Justin Mastari was out for the WHT and got second in that contest. Was talking to Justin on the phone, the younger of the two. And Frank was sitting, I think, upstairs or just like in a regular, I don't know, in the front runner or whatever. And Justin said, "Hey, Dad, if you want, I can call TQ and get you into the Eddie Logan."
Nice.
And I think his dad was a little bit like, "What the? Who is he? Who's this kid think he is?" And carried on. We hung out for a while. We talked, and as I was saying my goodbyes, I accidentally called him Justin on the way out, and his crew, Garrett Skiba included, gave him a pretty hard time. So it was definitely fun.
That's great. Yeah, Justin was one of the real revelations at the World Horse Player Tour event. 23-year-old kid, learned from his father and other mentors, I assume Garrett Skiba among them, and put in a great show there. Mustaris are real good Chicago horse players, regulars at those Hawthorne events. And speaking of Chicago, Garrett Skiba winning it all, JK, out at Arlington. Did you hear about his play that put him over the top? I don't know the answer to this one.
I saw it. I saw the play. He Nick Tamro, our buddy and friend of the podcast, was
speaking of World Horse Players Tour.
Yeah, he was in first place with like 10,500. I don't know if you've heard the story yet. Second place was like 5,000. Third place was like, I don't know, $3,000. He was I was like, Nick, dude, like, it's not a top heavy contest. You're good. No one's gonna fire. Those guys aren't gonna. You're good, man. He's like, I know, I'm good. We all thought he was good, and then here comes Garrett Skiba up the escalator with this kind of like adrenaline looking on his face, and he hits the thing for he bet $1,700 on the horse that won the last, and the horse paid like $7, but bet $1,000 to win. Big exactas, tries the whole thing, and just hit the whole thing and went up to $21,000. And
wow.
Not only did he go up to $21,000, someone else went to 12 and passed Nick, so Nick got third. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is Nick's third time in a row qualifying for the NHC at the Arlington Park contest.
At least twice in a row. He's a horse for course there for sure. Not a big deal, the difference between second and third. I think it's both an NHC seat, if I'm not mistaken.
First is second and third. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
Whereas
first was a BCBC. Yeah.
And funny enough, Garrett, who I think wouldn't have accepted the NHC seat based on his stance about the event. Not the biggest fan of the event or the organization behind it, but whatever. It's the Garrett's opinions are not necessarily those of the DRF Players Podcast, but for him, he was only interested in the top prize. Nick, huge fan of the NHC, and I think this will be now his 6th time out there. So in a funny way, it all works out, even if not monetarily speaking for now.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you know this, but Garrett, I don't know if it was at Naira for the Belmont contest or whatever, but he was in a position to get an NHC seat. He's been taking a stand all year, like not paying the tour fees and blah, blah, blah. But he does have one because someone, I think maybe Naira paid his $50, and so he is now an NHC qualifier. So.
That's funny. He had told me he was not going to accept such a thing. So I don't know. It's complicated. Garrett listens. He'll probably send me a text explaining. But that is, I do find that a little amusing based on some of our past conversations.
Well, I told him I thought it was funny. Like there's people that are flying all over the world trying to qualify, and he's trying his hardest not to.
There was a situation like that. Funny enough, it all comes back to World Horse Players Tour. Garrett and Nick, both final table members. It's almost like this contest playing is a skill or something, JK.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw Jason Avila's name at the top of a leaderboard recently. Tony Zhou, won. He won a Santa Anita contest after that. So, or got second at least. So it's definitely a skill, and you can tell by looking at the leaderboards week in and week out. These guys will be back next time.
Tony did get an outright win. Possibly his first. It wasn't the biggest of the three that weekend, but he did get an outright win. I don't know if we've talked about that yet on the show. Very cool to see that for him. Obviously he dreams of a major, and I'm sure there's one with his name on it. Folks interested in the World Horse Players Tour. It sounds like we're within, I don't know, a month of the premiere party in Saratoga for sure. And at some point that's going to live online. Folks can check it out. Hopefully the enthusiasm around it will help us put together more of these horse player friendly events. And
we talked about
out there.
Real quick, I didn't mean to cut you off. We talked about this and we hadn't elaborated on it, but we have a few extra spots for some podcast members. So I think we were going to have them email the podcast email, right? If they were interested, they're going to be in town that week.
Great idea. August 8th, that's between the sales and the contest. If you're a listener, you're invited. So let us know. Space is somewhat limited, but let us know so we can get the RSVPs taken care of. Podcast at drf.com. And speaking of things we need y'all to sign up for, on July 17th, special edition of the podcast. We're gonna take off on Friday because I'm here in London and I love the idea of just like a 3-day weekend off with like no work. It'll probably be the last time I take off this summer. It'll be work every day in one form or another after that. So I want to take that show off. But then we'll come back on the following Tuesday before opening day at Del Mar, and we're going to do a little bit of a look into the opening day Del Mar and Saratoga cards. Saratoga will have drawn by then. And we're also going to do some lifestyle stuff about both Del Mar and Saratoga. It will be archived as usual. You'll get it in your podcast feed, but it would really help the show if you go ahead and sign up for the webinar. If you can tune in live, all the better. It's going to be on that Tuesday night from 8 to 9 Eastern, so 5 to 6 Pacific. But just to lay all the cards on the table, even if you know you won't be able to join, do us a favor and sign up. We just want to sort of show the depth and breadth of the podcast audience. And there's going to be some special promotions going on connected with the show as well. Going to be talking about, we don't have all the details yet, but it looks like there'll be a special DRF tournaments contest maybe on that Friday, focusing on Del Mar and Saratoga races with, I think it's going to be something like 500 in site credit. So nothing more than the typical free contests on there. That should be fun. And also going to be talking about this fun series of seminars I'm going to be doing live at Saratoga. New location this year. We're going to be in a more accessible place, I think, on the second floor at the Carousel. Some great guests lined up already. More great ones to come. And JK, any of the weekends you're in town, if you want to come up and be a guest / co-host, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, there's a possibility for opening weekend I might be around if you don't already have people lined up for that. And then Whitney, I'll be there, and 4-Star Dave, I should be there. So, one of those appearances, we might have to get Austin on, too, for his first live performance. Perrin's got one. He's a little bit jealous of that, so we want to get him on board.
I love it, and that should work. I think it sounds like opening week you can help me in a host role, but it sounds like it's going to be all Matisse all the time if I can make it happen. However many microphones we have or can share, and however many Matisses are around.
Which day is that?
That's going to be the opening Saturday, the July 21st. So you can help me. You can help me herd Matisses in front of them.
You need. Here's what you need. I'll just tell you right now. You can go ahead and let your audio text know. You need a chick mic, Duke, Paul, Carson, and Bobo. You'll be good to go.
I like it. We'll if we can all fit on the stage, we're going to make this happen. It could be a real blast, and we're going to have fun all summer long. Good opportunity to come by. I want to try to do some giveaways this year, really try to expand it a little bit. That'll be on Saturdays. Location a little bit to be announced, but I think it's going to be second floor carousel, 11 to 11:30. I want to be wrapped. It'll be lean and mean. I want to be wrapped by the time the anthem goes, and then folks can enjoy Talking Horses and go from there. But a little bit of a reason to show up at Saratoga early. And we're going to have some great days. I can't wait. I cannot believe, JK, 10 days from today, opening day at Saratoga. How excited are you about these summer meets?
I'm fired up. I'll be honest with you. I used to not fear them. I was excited about them, but I never did well in them. And so I used to always get a little nervous when they were coming around. And I've gotten more comfortable, and I've understood they're more of a marathon than a sprint. Want to try to keep your head above water. And let the life vest come for you. Just keep your head above water, and it'll come. And if you get lucky, you'll get a helicopter out of there. So it's something that it took me a long time to get used to. But I love those two meets. I'm excited. I'm going to get to go to both. Saratoga is great for its own reasons. It's great because of the city revolves around what's happening there. And Del Mar is great because there's so much to do outside of the racetrack that's different than most of us get to experience in our lives. Flip-flops and the beach and patios and waves and all that good stuff. So both are great opportunities. If you haven't been to one or the other, you need to make sure you try to get out there.
And if you want some ideas, make sure to tune in to that show on the 17th at 8. We'll both be sending links out via Twitter. Hopefully it will be promoted on DRF.com as well. But please do us a favor, sign up and join us if you can. I assume your Del Mar travel plans will include the contest, JK?
Yes, the contest. We're going to go, the greatest thing about this is a little sneak peek to the lifestyle of Del Mar. Del Mar Fridays start late. They start at 4 local. So if you can, from anywhere in the world pretty much, you can fly in the day of and still make racing, which is not always easy to do anywhere else in America. It's virtually impossible to fly from Texas to Lexington to catch Keeneland's first race. I don't think I could do the same. I couldn't come to Belmont and catch the first either from here. You can absolutely get there for the first, the day of. So we're going to fly out on Friday, try to catch the Brigantine early, one of my favorite places to pregame at before the races, and then head over and have a good Friday out there, and then the contest is Saturday and Sunday.
One of my great disappointments in life that the Sunset Fridays at Saratoga did not continue. I've never looked at the numbers business-wise, but as a fan experience, that was so fabulous for those couple of years when we had 3 or 3:30 start times up there, and I could go on a rant about it. I will spare you that. Let me just say that I miss it terribly. Those Sunset Fridays were a great addition, and not least because you could get up from downstate easily in time for the first race, which can be done for a 1 o'clock post, but is, tricky. I've got some traveling next few days around here. You wanted to piggyback on that, JK?
Yeah, well, I'm curious. I didn't know that. How did the Fridays work? Did they have to hurry to get it in before it got dark, or what? How did they?
Not really. They just started late, and this was in the days before, 13 races on a Saturday were a thing, right? I'm pretty sure they now end a regular Friday probably about very, very close to the same time. Maybe they pushed it another 15, 20 minutes, but now that they've added so many extra races, so you hear these arguments, oh, well, they got rid of it because it wasn't fair to the local businesses. You believe that, I got a bridge to sell you. They end so late now, it's materially, it makes absolutely no difference. I think these days it's probably more a factor of just wanting to sneak that many more races in early. I do think they went a little bit later. I mean, I can remember leaving there in the gloaming, but it was kind of magical and great. And it's just a shame that they've decided that's not something they want to pursue. But you still can get that experience at Del Mar.
Yeah, think about all the business. I know you're calling BS, but think about all the businesses that would have got lunch business they didn't get.
Exactly. Like, if you're a local business, be creative and come up with a way. But like I said, that was always just a story. As far as I'm concerned, it was a great thing that's been lost, and it's too bad. But it's one of the things that's better about Del Mar, and there are a few, typically including the weather. But who knows? Maybe we'll get lucky this year.
Well, Pete, I got one thing I can't forget to get to. I haven't told you this yet either. You'll love this.
Keep going.
I want to say thank you to Arlington Park. This is the second time I've been there for a contest. The third time I've been to their racetrack. They do a good job in terms of their hospitality and just the presentation to the regular fans. I went downstairs from the contest room to get a piece of pizza for Austin, and it was packed. Like, it was like a really busy day, and they got a lot of people out there. And so I wanted to say kudos to Arlington Park, who I thought did a great job. Their buffet was great, all kinds of good stuff. And at one point, after Austin got his second Shirley Temple, because apparently that's his racetrack thing to do. He only does it. He only does it at racetracks. He never asked for one anywhere else, but one of the racetracks was Shirley Temple. But he looked at me. He was playing his game, and he looked up at me. He said, "Dad, this place is like my new Eddie Logan." And I was like, whoa, buddy. Take it easy. You're getting a little bit out of control here. Relax. Great. And I had to remind him that we had to order his Shirley Temple, or Arcadia did not remember that he loved it and brought it to him without being prompted. Arcadia did not bring him ice cream. There's not the beautiful San Gabriel Mountains in the background. TQ wasn't in there changing the channels. There's a lot of things missing. Big fella, slow down.
That's great, though. And hey, coming in the rounding out the top 5 as one of our favorite racing spots behind the Eddie Logan Suite there's absolutely no shame in that. No knock is meant. Did they have? I remember you talked years ago, JK, after a contest experience there about a candy bar or something, like not a candy bar like a Hershey's candy bar that you eat, but like a bar that was all candy.
They did not have that, but their dessert menu, dessert setup was nice. It wasn't the candy bar that I was so excited about, but it was amazing. The second thing I wanted to point out, Pete, just not that this is a competition or anything, but Austin's list of racetracks is growing pretty quickly, and it's pretty impressive. He's been to Saratoga, Del Mar, Keeneland, Arlington Park, Gulfstream, Lone Star, and I think there's one other I can't remember, but that's pretty. Oh, and Santa Anita, of course.
Of course. Perrin's right there. Perrin's right there with number of racetracks, I think. She has some of the USA ones to cross off the list. I think I'm most proud of her already having Longchamp and Ascot and Cheltenham on the list. She's got the little bit of an advantage because of all the international travel. But the kids their resumes in terms of racetracks visited are a lot more impressive than ours at the equivalent age. Let's put it that way.
Oh, I'd been to probably Trinity Meadows, and that was it.
Yeah, I don't think I was allowed into Roosevelt Raceway back in the day. My parents were more into the harness than the thoroughbreds. All right, let's talk about some actual thoroughbreds. And let's start off with the Belmont Derby, JK, a race eerily reminiscent of the prep race for the Belmont Derby. Give me your thoughts. Props to Catholic Boy. Such a cool horse. One of my favorites in training. Showing that toughness once again and getting to the line first over his arch rival.
Yeah, no, good for him and good for Jonathan Thomas. Some more evidence that if you want to win a big Grade 1 turf race, you don't have to give the horse to Chad. I'm not knocking anyone who gives the horse to Chad, but there's a lot of other guys that can train out there too. Jonathan Thomas is one of them. Congratulations to him. I had a saver ticket with Catholic Boy, but I was alive to analyze it, and other horses too. I had kind of re-bought into he was going to turn the tables. I thought Catholic Boy, as a more tough horse, stuck it to him in the Pennine Ridge. I thought that Analyze It would go be aggressive and kind of take the fight to Catholic Boy and the rest of them. And he ends up raiding again. Catholic Boy gets the lead, goes on, and then, just like last time, Analyze It ranges up like I'm going to count my money again. And in the stretch, in a room full of people that know what they're looking at, in a room full of people that watch the replay, I couldn't have asked to be in a better place to witness that happen. But you slowly started hearing, it's going to happen again. He's going to do it again. It's going to happen again. He's doing it again. It's going to happen. It's just like, and then it starts erupting. And then it's like, oh, he did it again. He did, oh my God, the exact same thing. And it really was. And I called you because you were running around getting ready to head out of town. And I had to tell you the story all over again. And I didn't know if it would be better to tell you the story more dramatically or just tell you to watch it and call me back. I went with telling you the story. I couldn't believe that it happened. He is a gutsy horse. And there's a lot of traits that I think people would love to have in a horse that they owned. And I can't think of one better than just that kind of just knockdown, you're going to have to drag me out of here situations. And that's what Catholic Boy does. And it says a lot about him. And it says a lot about the training job with Jonathan Thomas.
I agree. He's such a cool horse. He's done so much already in his career. Very excited to see what happens next. I will say this. It wasn't – the last time was still much more shocking to me, not just because we'd seen the movie before this time, but I think if there were in-running betting, there's no doubt in my mind – last time, Analyze It would have been 1 to 100 in running. This time, I'm not sure he ever would have gone lower than 1 to 5, maybe between 1 to 5 and 1 to 10. Like he looked like winning, but he didn't look like he'd won. That's the difference to me between the Pennine Ridge and the Belmont Derby. In the Pennine Ridge, he looked like he'd won. Like there was just no shot, and it came back out of nowhere. And this time, Catholic Boy it looked more measured somehow. And even though it was still obviously very unlikely that he was going to get back up, I never quite gave up on him in the same way. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fair. If you wrote the book right now on Analyze It, what would it say?
Yeah, it would say he prefers races better when Catholic Boy isn't in them.
I mean, I heard a lot of things. I heard blinkers. But Chad doesn't run a lot of horses in blinkers, and I mean, to me, what do the blinkers do in that situation? Because like he's seeing the other horse and he's not responding. What if he sees what is not seeing the horse? If he's pulling himself up, why is that going to make him stop pulling himself? I'm not a horseman. I'm asking the question. I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just trying to they're just doing a very human thing, which is when we don't see an answer, we don't see a pattern, we grasp and we try to make something up. And, it's not crazy in that regard.
He needs to be ridden like What Have You used to be ridden. And obviously, in my opinion, just let him roll. Just dead sin, let him roll. Let him use all that natural talent early in the race before he decides he doesn't want to keep running. And if he wants to coast in, let him coast in when he's up by 10 at the top of the stretch.
We talked about the horse on paper coming into the race, and we talked about how maybe he had the sort of move into hot pace, old school Andy Beyer trip angle. Not the case here. This didn't look like. Actually, let me take a quick look at the time form coding of the race and see if there's any clue there.
It's blue at the mile.
Yeah, blue at the mile. So almost the opposite. It just seems it's it's two races, right? It's a small sample size, so you don't want to get over dramatic in your conclusions. The Catholic Boy's never going to lose to Analyze It, because that's not really the way that the world works. But I will say this time around, even more impressive, even though it maybe wasn't as unlikely, even more impressive in some ways, the Catholic Boy won. And I'm very proud that on the show, I said, I did not think there was a world in which Catholic Boy would be 2.5 times the price of, or 1.5 times the price. didn't think there'd be this kind of price discrepancy. And I said on the show the other day that it would be nuts if there were. And hopefully that puts some people on to saying, I get in your situation, JK, when you're betting picks and you don't see those odds staring you in the face. I get why you went the way you did with Analyze It as an A and Catholic Boy as a B. But for me, if you're just looking into this race and seeing 5-1 Catholic Boy versus 2-1 Analyze It, that just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm hoping plenty of listeners took advantage of it in that market.
Well, there's a couple of things I want to talk about this race. The first one is the reason I used Catholic Boy as a B is I thought that one of the other three horses was like definitely going to win, and I couldn't tell which one it was going to be, but I felt very confident that Analyze It, Hunting Horn, or Hawkish would win the race, and that's kind of what allowed me to push Catholic Boy back to a B. Maybe it wasn't the smartest move, but that was my thinking there. The second idea is we don't ever say this very much on the show. In fact, we constantly give credit to this person, but in my opinion, Chad Brown's making a mistake with this horse. And the reason I think he's making a mistake with Analyze It is because how many Chad horses run on the front anyway, right? So it says something about this horse's skill set from how he ran at Del Mar when he wired that field and how he was forwardly placed at Keeneland. I think that Chad has probably trained this horse like he's his other horses, and he will hopefully now adjust and let this thing do what it does best rather than what Chad horses do. And I think that the horse will. And I'm not knocking Chad. He's one of the best trainers in the world. I'm just saying, I think that this horse might be a little bit in his blind spot. But Chad, like all great people at everything, Chad's going to find the blind spot and he'll fix whatever it is. And I just think that maybe some concerns about the distance probably resulted in him not jumping on the bandwagon of this horse needs to be ridden aggressively.
A few other horses to touch on. Hunting Horn ran well enough, looked a threat in the stretch. Didn't have that customary kick, but one I still think is suited to USA Racing. I don't think that they'll necessarily give up on the idea of pressing forward to a race like the Secretariat with Hunting Horn. He didn't have an excuse exactly. The other two horses were definitely better, but he could be a progressive sort who continues to improve, and I wouldn't count him out of winning something on our shores at some stage.
Yeah, let me ask you a question, and you'll know where I'm going with this, and it'll transition to the next topic through this race we need to talk about. It's just one word. Why? Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't.
Why do they keep betting my boy Jack?
I
don't understand.
I just didn't want to. I didn't want to be negative, so I didn't. I didn't pick up what you were putting down. No, it's insane. And he opened. You were watching more closely than I was. I was in the World Cup rabbit hole. You said the horse was like hammered coming out of the situation.
He had when everyone else's odds were white, his were yellow, meaning he was the favorite. I think he was 5-2, 3-1. Yeah, and I don't know. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, but Marshall Graham posted a thing. If you don't follow Marshall, you should. Truxton Stables, Truxton. He pretty much said, my boy Jack was once again a takeout reducer, somewhere between 3.5 and 5%. Mm-hmm. He was 5-1 to win, and in the doubles coming in and out, he was about 8-1. And the name's not even that clever. Like, it's not like, everyone's betting him. Someone told me, everyone's betting him because everyone knows someone named Jack.
I mean, at the Derby, that made more sense to me. At the Derby, that I get that, but you don't have that level of. It's obviously more. Some methodology he must look good in some alternative universe of studying form as well to take the amount of money that he has. It did not.
I'm gonna
compute for me.
I'm gonna name a horse my boy Matt and see if he gets overbet all the time. Well, not because of the Matt Bernier fans. I'm just saying in general.
There are a lot of them out there. TV's Matt Bernier has a lot of people in his corner. Hawkish, JK, I know you've been a big fan. You mentioned as you thought a more likely winner than Catholic Boy, which makes me shake my head a little bit. But what did you see an excuse there? Where are you with Hawkish going forward?
Yeah, I think maybe the mile and a quarter was a little bit more than this one once, and maybe the shorter distances will help. We'll see. I'm not ready to write him off as a horse. Obviously, I don't think you were suggesting that, but I don't really have a lot to take from it, his performance.
All right, let's keep going through these races. We got plenty of time here. We got half an hour left. We got some questions. Lots of very interesting conversations. We were joking around about the Dr. Door opportunity situation heading into the Suburban. As it turns out, very fast fractions, all cut out by Diversify, who was imperious in victory, to use the polite way of saying that other thing that we say at the paddock bar a lot. What'd you think of Diversify? What's the ceiling for this horse?
Yeah, I thought he was good. I thought it was kind of the same thing that happened last time he won a 1.25 mile race at Belmont. He kind of found that middle zone, that right in the middle of the jockey's dilemma on the spectrum. He found that spot where he went fast enough to really stick it to everyone else, and to make it the closer's jobs a little bit more difficult, but then also to stay in that middle zone where he could still run on. And I think that it's not fair to just make it seem like that was all IRAD and all. The horse does that too. I think that he really likes that distance. He really likes that serve that we talked about on Friday. Is like these horses that can run well at that 1.25 miles at Belmont. It's a little bit of a different ball game. It's such a big racetrack with the sweeping turns. You'll find horses that just love that scenario and will excel in it more than others. And Diversify is clearly one of those. I was really happy to see the Lieutenant come in at 34-1, and we got a little mention for him. And it wasn't so much about the horse on paper as it was my belief in Mike McCarthy as a trainer and the horse's pedigree being a half to justify. So Opportunity was a little bit disappointing. Taprit was probably a lot more disappointing. But Diversify is a nice horse, and he's forwardly placed, and hopefully we can see him in some of these other races down the line to keep these paces honest.
Yeah, Hopper, that's a really tough spot for him. He's such a grinder. And if he's going to have to be that far back with a horse taking the bull by the horns with the quality of Diversify, that's never going to be the Hopper situation. He's better against grade 3 types where he can be close and just do what he does best, and that's grind. So I wouldn't – Hopper is one of those horses. We've seen it for a long time. You can sort of smell the spots he's going to do well in. Knowing how the tactics played out here, I find that pretty easy. I find that one a pretty easy one to forgive. Taprit, it'll be interesting to see what happens next. He ends up being very wide, I suppose, but you would expect, I guess I would have expected maybe a little bit better than a 5th place run. Did you see any excuse for him?
No, I think that someone said that, maybe at Hopper's age and the way that he runs, he kind of like runs, not all out, but he's just running around there, grinding away. He's running the whole time. I think maybe he just might need a little bit more time in between starts. I'd heard Bowser kind of mention that this was kind of a little bit quicker than he probably wanted to be. I'd imagine they'll probably just, if I own the horse, I'd take him home and let him relax and let him train up to like the Gold Cup and then come back in the Breeders' Cup. You know what I mean?
Makes sense. And what about Taprit?
He just wasn't very good. I didn't really think he had a ton of excuses. I thought he was going to run well. He was one of my top 2 selections. I thought he ran well in his comeback race. I thought he had plenty of room to improve second off for Todd, but for whatever reason, he didn't. Let's see. I guess maybe we'll give him one more shot at Saratoga somewhere. And if he runs like this again, kind of a middle of the pack, nothing, I think it probably just lets you know that he was the right horse at the right time last June when he won the Belmont.
Makes sense. We'll see what happens. I'd love to see him bounce back. Maybe the ground loss contributed and an unusual pace scenario. Sometimes when you see that, a horse just gut a field the way that Diversify did, it can put other. We've talked about it. When you stay on the right side of that jockey's dilemma, you can get other horses so out of their comfort zone they might have some no-show type races when there is more quality hidden in there. But I'm not like you in a hurry to bet him back. That's just more me as a racing fan. I'd love to see what he can do moving forward. Let's move on to the Belmont Oaks. Here's another one that I can't say that I gave her out, but I can say that based on our analysis, I'd like to think some podcast listeners would have seen 10-1 on Athena. That's an overlay. And gotten involved, and she gets the job done, winning easily. Looked like a looked like a pretty great setup, and just one who's improving. We got a question about we'll get to, but first, JK, give me your thoughts on this Belmont Oaks and how it all went down.
Yeah, I was against significant form, but I'm not going to take full credit for that because I had heard that like there became an issue prior to the race, and the last race that kind of that it was just racetrack rumor, right? I don't know if it was real or not, and I'm not even going to say what it was because I don't know if it's true. But just she wasn't right before the race, but whatever, or she just wasn't herself, and so I kind of forgave her for the performance that I was knocking so hard. And I included in some opportunities. I didn't use prominently, but I just included in some underneath situations. I used Athena as a backup as well, kind of the same way I used significant form. I thought that this race was going to be Mighty Scarlet, Paved, and those were the top two that I had liked. I don't think that the ride was the reason significant form lost, but I thought it was a little bit patient down inside, and kind of Irad got himself into a position where he needed to decide if he was going to go in or out, and he decided a little bit late that he was going to go in, and then that kind of went away, and then he was trying to make up for that. And I just think that she might have tricked us a little bit, and I don't think she's as good as I hoped and predicted that she was going to become last October. So Athena was good. She won like a good thing, and it's funny. It's really funny how they bring over their B team and beat our A's on a consistent basis. It says a lot about the programs that they have over there, not if anyone didn't already understand that.
Yeah, well, Athena really, I felt like had some excuses in the previous races, not least just based on form. And the question we got was, as somebody who didn't see this horse at all, so many races in a short amount of time and hadn't really thrived at the highest levels. But got to understand a few things. The European season is so different. There is all-weather racing, but for proper turf horses, they're not running in the winter. So in the summer peak season, it's still a little unusual, but I don't see it as a negative when they're coming back quickly. And I mean, I get it. July 1st to July 7th looks, if it was a USA horse, you really would think twice. Though, honestly, with certain trainers, I just trust them. If they're saying, hey, I can bring this horse back in 7 days, there's a reason. But, I mean, when you just go and you look at a site like timeform.com, and you can access it also via Timeform US, and you look at the ratings, I should actually do that as an experiment and see how did Athena come out on ratings on Timeform US heading into this race. But I'm assuming the answer is going to be she came out well. But the bigger thing to me is
she had a 101 last time.
And how did that stack up against the field?
I'm just going to name the other numbers: 111, 91, 108, 108, 111, 108, 109.
Interesting. So significantly behind. I just don't see how that's possible. I don't buy that, honestly. I mean, to me, in quality, when I'm seeing a horse who's running third in a Group 1 over there, I just don't see how in my reckoning of the race, I can't put her that far behind USA turf horses, even competing in a Grade 3. And maybe that's just a prejudice I have. And it's always tricky that sometimes the way that the ratings get converted from, this is a rabbit hole that I do not want to go down right now because I don't have it all in my head right to even attempt to explain it. And even if I could, it's not all that interesting. But the way that when you're looking at timeform.com, they bake in the weight in a more that a horse is carrying in and they project for age, and they do these other things that are not intuitive to an American audience. So you can't. I get why we are. I get why when we're translating these numbers, they're different. But I mean, to me, that just feels relative to this field. That just feels too low. I mean, you look at the horse. You look at a horse like Forever Together, who finished ahead of her, and I don't know, just everything intuitively tells me this one, if she runs her race, is going to be very dangerous. And I know she's sort of underachieved over there, but there have been enough excuses along the way I just think you got to respect group form shipping over even at our highest turf races. And when you wouldn't lump on her. Like I said, the morning line was too short. I think the morning line was 9-2. And I think I said, for me, more of a 6-1 shot. But when you see her drifting that high, anyway, I don't say this to redboard this horse. It was a specific question about why she shouldn't have been overlooked. That's the only reason I've gone into this detail.
Yeah, no, I think it makes a ton of sense. And I've heard that before. I mean, I think that when we adjusted our time form US figure, not we, when time, as US is what I meant by we. When time form US adjusted the figures, it felt like some, not all, but some of those European numbers seemed a little bit lighter compared to ours. I don't know the reasoning behind it. I've told you before, I love time form US figures.
So it's a great. I'm not denigrating the product at all.
I just think that there's a little bit more that has to be assessed when you're looking at a European figure compared to ours. I think you need to consider the other situation. I mean, the same thing happened with Sister Charlie last year. Her number was not as good as you would think it would be based on the company that she held, and she's obviously turned.
Won the French Oaks. I mean, she towered over that. She should have towered over that field by any numerical assessment that I could think of.
Right. The other horse that we should probably talk about before we move from this race is Toinette. I thought she was extremely overbet, especially when you look at the reason she was fancied. Right, it's like because she ran so well late in the Edgewood, but really it was an illusion of Rushing Fall and Daddy is a Legend, whoever you blame for that situation collapsed that race.
Yes,
at the top of the stretch. And so I think that, understanding how a horse won their previous races, like handicapping 101 and identifying when to expect a horse to not run as well in their next.
I think that's a great point that people should think about. And maybe we should have emphasized that a little bit more even. It's hard when your eye sees such a stylish win. You want to give the extra credit. But you got to remember that race was so unusual, like what you were saying with those two hooking up so early. It really was just an absolutely beautiful setup. And if the top two had run more efficiently, she would have been third in there. And that's the kind of form that maybe you should have been trying to evaluate her on, as opposed to the splashier finish. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with Athena. Very valuable all of a sudden. Might come back over here to try to get some group form, or could be one obviously suited by USA. I wonder if could appear at the Arlington meeting where I was predicting Hunting Horn might show up next. So that was it, right, JK? Those were the two Aidan O'Brien horses that ran at Belmont on Saturday. There's nothing else we need to talk about, is there?
Nope, no, there are Aidan O'Brien horses to talk about.
I'll just take it on the chin on this one. I've been the biggest defender of Mendelssohn. But I will say this. My point was not, and I've always liked Mendelssohn. I'm not trying to say that I didn't like him. But my point was not, oh, he's great. He was better than the winner. He was anything like this in the Derby. My point was simply, I didn't think it was fair to evaluate him off that run where he was eliminated at the start and knocked about again and then not really asked by his rider. And I had faith he would come back and show some semblance of his form. He did not. It was a very weak race, in my opinion. And it was weak. And I mean, you're going to hear some apologists and you're going to hear, oh, he needed the run and this and that. I'm sorry. Against that field, you've got to run better than that if you are a serious contender for the Breeders' Cup Classic. And seeing that, I just have to start going back and saying, that was a crazy biased racetrack. That was not a very good field. Maybe that bias added 20 points to his speed figure that day, and all of a sudden he's starting to look very average. And look, at this point I want to be wrong. I'd love him to come back, and I'd love him to stick to the plan, and I'd love him to show how good he is. But boy, I was grossed out by it and very happy I didn't bet.
You think he'll be back?
I think they're talking that way, but that could also just be like, because you don't want to be panicky and be like, when you own the horse, it's one thing for me to be like, woof, I was wrong about that one. But, you got to think about this horse's future. He's still incredibly valuable. stallion prospect, and they've got to market him. So you're not going to market it by going, woof. You're gonna come up with something, and maybe what you come up with is, oh, he really needed the race, and maybe we'll try again, and then maybe you change the story a little bit later and say, you know what, we're going to try him on turf at home. I don't know. With all this horse could be worth, and the Scat Daddy factor as well, I wouldn't blame him for trying one more time, but I wouldn't be betting him, would you?
No, I mean, as an owner, I would guess that Coolmore has never taken a horse from Aiden for anything, right? I'm sure that Aiden gets to do whatever he wants and he has free run. He is the greatest turf trainer in the world. So, like, what's really wrong with sending this horse to your American trainer, which could be Todd or Chad or even Bob? Like, what's wrong with that?
Could be Todd.
Yeah, I mean, well, so, but I'm just saying, if the horse's real value is winning a real, that's not fair. Winning an American Grade 1 Classic type race is where the real cha-ching happens for this horse. Then, like, why not take that chance? You've done so much for Aiden and his family. You're not making it seem as if he's not capable. It's like this horse has a hurdle he needs to get over. Let's give him the guy who can give him the best chance of getting over that hurdle.
It's not nuts. I don't think it's going to happen. But what you're saying, if it did happen, I wouldn't say it was a bad idea. Just the rigors are different here. I mean, that is part of it. But at the same time, I don't want to get all full on the train of, oh, Aiden can't do it. I feel like that's going back to that trainer stat or something we talked about last show. And I don't think the trainer stat or anything about Aiden is the reason the horse didn't run better. I think the horse maybe isn't as good as some, including myself, were thinking he was.
Well, don't you think that it'd be a little bit more fair to the horse to let him train on the surface he's going to run on a consistent basis to develop the muscles that are different in running in dirt than they are running on turf, and to like really be able to kind of adjust his whole mindset and his body and his everything to get used to running on the dirt.
Everything you're saying makes sense. I think I'm being a little stubborn because I almost feel like that argument goes to the fact that stat about Aiden O'Brien on the dirt meant something, and I'm being stubborn and wanting to say that it didn't. And I still think, even though I don't think I can sit here anymore and talk about Mendelssohn as a serious contender for the Breeders' Cup Classic, I don't feel like I have to fully give in and say Aiden O'Brien can't train a Grade 1 American dirt horse, because I think he can.
He can if he was training the horse on dirt.
That's interesting. Well, so you've gone to the other side of the argument from saying don't bet that stat to now where you would bet against Aiden O'Brien dirt horses.
No, I was against that stat because I thought the horse was good enough to run through the fact that Aiden does not excel on the dirt, or he's not a dirt trainer. I just thought my point was I think the horse might be good enough to run through that, and he had proven that he can run on the dirt by how he ran in Dubai. My point to that stat was these horses that we're using the stat for are not horses that have shown the same ability and have the same breeding that Mendelssohn had. So it's horse specific, not so much the trainer.
Fair enough. Let's talk about the horse who won the race, and let's at least 30 seconds of credit, JK, before we talk about what everybody's talking about, which were the absolutely, utterly insane betting patterns in this race. We talked about Firenze Fire as one who would appreciate the cutback, and sure enough, he did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to give credit to someone who said it much better than I could say it, and I'll probably have to paraphrase it unless I talk really long and slow until I pull it up on Twitter. But Paul Matisse made a comment about Firenze Fire, pointing out that, let's not forget that this horse beat the 2-year-old champion on this track with this jockey at this distance. So it's not like he's some horse that made no sense. We've been yelling cutback for the horse. He got the cutback. A lot of times when there's an overbet horse in a pool based on hype, you see this late push of money on the horse that actually deserves to be lower than he is based on the fact that the overbet horse is probably not as good as the public is treating him. So there's all these reasons why it could have happened. The problem is the optics, and I think that's probably what we'll talk about here.
All right, just in case people don't know, Mendelssohn 3-5 most of the betting, ends up 3-2. What was Ferenczi Fire most of the betting?
He was a majority of the time. This is a Paul tweet. I believe he was 5 or 6-1 when they at 0 minutes to post. He was 6-1
and goes off at 5-2. That's an insane amount of money. I've seen it estimated as a $40,000 bet. You know, the obvious answer is the late computer money that we know has an opportunity to come in from the last flash. However, that money is usually reflected across different pools, whereas in this instance, the other picks predicted odds that looked a lot more like the market before this $40,000 came in. I had a great conversation right before we came on the air, JK, with Sean Borman, who's also very familiar with financial markets. His theory was this was a fat finger job. Somebody entered the wrong number on the horse late. It was meant to be a $4,000 bet that wouldn't have shook up the market to that degree, and it became a $40,000 bet. And he pointed out that there have been instances in world financial markets where similar errors have created real problems and downturns in stock markets. If it can happen in world financial markets, why can't a simple betting error happen in parimutuel market for horse racing? And I have to say, that solution to me, using Occam's razor, just kind of makes the most sense, that it's a mistake. And it happens to look, like you said, and we'll get more into the optics, which aren't good at all, but it happens to really work out in the favor of the mistake and at the expense of people like Marshall Graham, who thought all of a sudden they were getting 3-2 about a horse who they, figured should be more like even money or whatever in the case of Mendelssohn before the race. What do you think? Have you heard anything about that? I know there's been a lot of Twitter chatter. I haven't been up on all of it. Has anybody else posted that idea publicly?
No, I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, it's definitely one that could happen. But I think the problem with that idea is that we figure at the time that the bet came in that it was coming in electronically. It was, they're all electronic, but it was like kind of like an automated thing where like it was coming in at the last possible second. You
don't have to choose between those two. There could be a fat finger that results in a last second wager in terms of, I've never sat there with a batching. I've never batched in money, computer money before, but it strikes me that there could be a way where you have a loss limit amount or something that enables you to have to put in some sort of parameter earlier on that the computer will then, do your will at the last possible minute. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It's unlikely somebody's actually just typing in 4,000 at the off, but I could see a situation where you have to state your total risk and that number could have got entered incorrectly that would let the bot go a little bit crazy at the end.
I also think that something that's important in this topic in general at every place in America is, and every racetrack does it, and they do it for the same reason, is that what we're seeing on the TV screen is a racetrack-generated graphic that pulls the information from the tote, turns it into a graphic, and then pops it up on the screen. It's not, I don't think, from my understanding, it's not a second-by-second real-time thing. I feel like there's a slight delay there. And if you look at an ADW that is tied in...
It's a significant delay. I think those prices that are feeding into it are delayed significantly.
Absolutely, that's why they cut it off.
Drops during the races, because it's not necessarily... I'm not going to say it's not that they're past posting. I'm going to say it's not necessarily that there's past posting going on, but that last cycle takes 15 seconds to update. Then you have another process. I mean, it's a joke. It's 2018. Everyone who's ever looked at the tote system in the United States has said, slight exaggeration when I say everyone who's ever looked at, but any serious consultant about the business that we're in knows that this stuff has to be updated and brought into modern standards. And they're still dealing with an ancient tote system that needs to be updated because I mean, it just put aside the fact, let's just say there isn't any funny business going on. It just looks horrible. So now you want to take horse racing into a world where we're now competing against sports betting, and you want to, it's bad enough. It's bad enough. You can bet the 5-2 and it becomes 3-2 or 5-1 in this case. That's bad enough. That's a marketing disaster against fixed odds sports betting, okay? And now you're going to say, oh, yeah, and by the way, we're not even going to tell you that until 15 seconds into the race. And you want to compete with sports betting? Good luck.
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's definitely not good. I've heard some recommended solutions, and I think they're not good or possible, which is to have a 30 to 90 second cutoff. But then the computers will do the same thing. They'll just do it at 91 seconds instead of at 1 second. It's
well, that's
the same
half
thing.
Measure. That's a half measure.
Yeah.
It would thwart concerns about the integrity, which is not nothing. Because I think there are some legitimate concerns about the integrity, as Mike Maloney outlines exhaustively in Betting with an Edge. I mean, I think the real answer, the full measure is you update the system to have something that's suited for 2018 where it can all, and maybe you have to rip it up and start again. And I understand it's going to cost a lot of millions. But I mean, I think if you really want to be a 21st century gambling game, it's to invest the money to do it properly instead of trying to, in the gambling landscape, you want to talk about bringing a knife to a gunfight, JK. How about horse racing with this antiquated technology, patch over 1980s software, competing against what we're up against now in the gambling landscape? It's a joke.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, there's a couple of things. One, I wanted to talk about Paul's solution and then the answer to your response. Paul's solution that he wrote on Twitter was the only solution is obviously to have the computer shut early. Not sure it's ever going to happen, but that's the only way to get the problem fixed is to have them out early. They have to have their automated bets in earlier, which is probably never going to happen.
Never going to happen.
To your point, it's one of those things where, like, you see these hazards all over the world, and you say to yourself all the time, "Oh, they're not going to fix that till someone dies." Like they're not going to fix that intersection until someone gets killed in a car crash. You know what I mean? Like that's not that this is the same, different. Same. It's not equal to life. My point being is that like there's going to have to be a significant tragedy for them to do something about it. But us just complaining about a last minute odds flash, they're not going to change that. It's just not going to.
It's just not
enough people.
There won't be that strategy. There'll be a slow bleed out. That's the problem.
There's not enough people affected by it, in my opinion. The computers clearly don't want it to change.
Right.
They've spent thousands and thousands of dollars hundreds and thousands of dollars creating models to bet into these pools. Into these tote systems. If these tote systems change, then their models have to be adjusted. Not that they can't do it, but it's just a thing that why change something that's working so well from them? And then no offense to the 90% of the other racetrack goers who are the guys that are and gals that are coming by after work and grabbing their form and betting their exacta boxes and their $2 to win and move on. Like it doesn't affect them enough for them to care.
But who it does affect? I mean, and I know what you're saying, and I'm not contradicting what you're saying, and I feel bad because I did want to talk about this Belmont sprint race, and we're just about out of time. But it makes it impossible for players like a Sean Borman or a Mike Maloney or a Paul Matisse to bet as much as they might want to. And those are players who can become annuities for the industry and continue betting year after year and have the industry make a whole lot of money off of. I get it in the short run. The computer guys betting a lot of money via computer are generating a lot of income. But I also see a world in which they find something where they can make a penny more and give up on racing. They're not.
Well, let's make the World Horse Players Tour like a horse players union of sorts and try to get some of these things adjusted.
I like it, JK. I like your vision. All right, we'll put a pin in that. Maybe we'll come back to it. Limousine Liberal. This horse is something else, JK. Gets the job done. Going to be heading to the Breeders' Cup Sprint at his favorite racetrack. What did you think of his effort?
The horse had a trip, didn't he? Whitmore likes to go right. If he could only find a racetrack where he can go right instead of left, he might be a Grade 1 winner a couple of times. He got into that tight spot, wanted to come out a little bit, sawed off Limousine Liberal. He was much the best. Kind of got the trip that I kind of envisioned he would get when I got excited about an opportunity to play him. Unfortunately, in the Arlington contest, I used Mendelssohn on the front half of a double, a very large double that would have been good for me. But I was right about Limousine Liberal, and the teller that I bought a $4 win bet for was right as well.
There you go. There you go. Good stuff from Limousine Liberal. Not a Churchill Downs horse for course only, but going to be very, very interesting on the home track there. All right, we are just about out of time. Any closing thoughts, JK?
No, I need France to win in a couple hours. So let's go.
What do you got? France you got France to win the whole thing?
Win the whole thing, yeah.
All right, that won't be a popular opinion among the people I'm about to hang out with here. This city, this country, they're going crazy, JK. They think they can do it. I think they've got every chance. They got a sweet draw. England did. If they can do the business against Croatia, the other team is going to have had a much tougher route there. They look good. I'm with you. You made me pick one. I'd pick France, and probably definitely the favorite will come from the other side. But England drawing live to win it all. And boy, don't I know a lot of people who are excited about that. I'll be watching it I'm going to Yarmouth races tomorrow, and I will be finding a pub nearby to watch it with the folks out there, and then going to Newmarket on Thursday. No show Friday, but we will be back 1 week from today, Tuesday, 8 o'clock start Eastern. Check your Twitter. Check the DRF site. There's going to be information. We want you to sign up and join us for our Del Mar and Saratoga preview. We'll be talking racing, and we will be talking fun lifestyle stuff. And we can take questions throughout the show. That's another fun thing about the webinar format. So join in, and we will see you 1 week from today. Thanks, JK, producer Craig, Travis Stone, Willie Nile. Most of all, thanks to you for listening. We look forward to seeing you again soon. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. May you win all your photos.